Hi! Hopefully, I should be all turned on and everyone should be able to see me. Hey, welcome back to DragonBorn Industries. I'm just doing a quick stream today because I need to finish painting off this undead warlord from WizKids, which is part of their deep cuts range. I started this with Craig from Dragon Skull Studios on his channel, which you should all go check out and like because he's an awesome dude, he's an awesome painter, he's one of the badgers with us at Band of Badgers, and all around just a nice guy, so go check him out and give him a follow. And I think he's on YouTube now as well with Dragon Skull Studios, which is awesome. And you can see our paint stream from last Friday there, which we did on his channel. But he's finished his, I haven't finished mine, so I am going to try and just crack on with this today and try and get at least the seated bit and the seated warlord and the throne done. And I especially want to do the throne because I'm trying to do a terrain piece at the moment and include it into it. But I did find that I had some issues with undead skin tones and stuff the other day, so I wanted to go in and at least redo some of the face as well, because I think that I'll try and show you, I wasn't overly happy with that kind of skull face. I think I want to make it more kind of like sunken in flesh. So I'm going to go back in with some browns and kind of shadow the areas that are, you know, underneath those cheekbones and stuff. And I might come in with some like, which one is it? I picked up an undead flesh. There's flayed one flesh, or I could come in with maybe a grey, or there's like a deep skin one or something. It's Corax White. I'll try and find it so that I know what I'm doing, because that always helps. Deepkin flesh, that's the one. So I'm thinking about using that one there to maybe do some highlighting of those cheekbones over the brown. But until that point, we're just going to go in with some Army Painter Monster Brown, or some Oak Brown maybe, or Leather Brown. Let's do some Monster Brown, although that is quite light. I might do a mix of Rhinox hide and that's Catch and Flash. Oh, that could work. Yeah, the base layer for Catch and Flash, that could work. That looks quite grim. So we will do that one there. Right, I need a brush, and I need quite a thin brush. So let's go with, this is a Pro Art one. You'll see how thin that tip is. Cool. I'm actually going to have to put on my nerd goggles, and away we go. So let us just dive straight on in, eh? Right. I hope you're all doing well today. If any of the volumes are an issue, do let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to compensate while we try and get this miniature finished off. Where is my Army Painter brush? There it is. So I'm just going to take a scoop of that Catachan flesh. Catachan flesh, sorry. I can never say the Warhammer names. Then I'm just going to add a bit of our pure water. Just make it nice and thin. And clean off that brush. So, what we should find is that we are just going in. I don't know how this is going to affect the light, but let's have a look. They come just under these cheekbones. It's quite a thin paint at the moment, which is good. But I ended up doing something that I don't normally do, and I added a wash to this mini on the face. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it's the first time I've used a wash in a long time, and I just did not get on with it. So going back to just doing what I normally do, and that's to just layer up and add my own shadows and my own tones in. But what I'm trying to do is just take some of that kind of like Come on, focus. There you go. Just take some of that brightness off that face, and where we had the wash go on, it ended up making it look, I don't know, just kind of like wet and sticky, and it wasn't what I was after. And yeah, maybe it's just because I haven't used the washers in a while. But either way, I'll take up some of that one there. And there's that one. So let's go in and take some out of those eye sockets as well, I think. Right. I think hopefully if I sort of point out the corners of the eyes, they might give it just a bit more shape. But I also really want to get that brown deep into the eye sockets. Because I want that to be my darkest colour underneath. And although I had the black and I used some Agrax Earthshade and some, I think it's Seraphim Sepia, it just didn't work out. And I think I can fix up the face a little bit better. I certainly know I'm better than that, but as I said in the Dragon Skull stream, I struggle with undead actually. A lot of the flesh tones and a lot of the stuff that a lot of people do so well, I just don't. It's one of those types of minis that I actually put off painting because I don't think the results I get are as good as what I get for like regular flesh tones. Hopefully I'll be able to showcase that later this week, as I should be painting up Moff Gideon from Star Wars Legion, as well as hopefully some D&D minis, as I hope to start a new series painting up the monster manual, where we'll be starting with the Aarakocra, which, to be honest, I'm actually going to do a lot of dry brushing because it's all feathers, and actually, in all fairness, the WizKids minis do lend themselves to it. So let's have a look. So it's starting to dull down a bit, and I'm not quite after skeletal here. I'm after that kind of like sunken, mummified flesh. I want it to be more zombie-like, I guess, but not quite full rotting flesh. So I'm hoping that with the added browns in there, that will be... Let's go that way. Yeah, that will start being a bit more muddy, and I guess is the kind of thing we're looking for. And now I need to start highlighting other areas. So we went around and we used some of the contrast Templar black to highlight the underside of things. So we went around and we did, if you'll see on the belt on his chest, I went around the underside and the overside and just gave it a black outline where it should then stand out away from the armour. I did that on obviously the pauldrons, and I did it on anywhere there was like a gap in the plate, and that way we got that separation between those parts. But what I need to do now is go in and highlight the top areas of those. But because I've tried to go with, I think it was a mix of lead belcher and bronze, I need to then tone up the corrosion. So I'm trying to work out which way around to do that. And again, it's a type of painting I haven't really tried before, is corrosive metal without doing it like rusted metal for sci-fi stuff. So this will be an interesting test for me. And I think what I'm going to get is a little bit of Necron compound for the end results of certain areas. And then we'll probably grab some of our lead belcher again when I find that. Probably need to get a new paint stand because it's hard to find them when it's just the tops. Or at least write the things on. Unless I left the lead belcher out. No, I don't think I did. There it is, right in the middle, staring at me. Some lead belcher. I'm going to grab that bronze again, because the bronze did really well. But I think I want to add some of those deeper deeper colours to certain areas, and we might actually find that we get some of that corrosion from the bronze as well. So let's have a look at, put that back in focus for you, so at least you can look at something while it's while I'm dicking around my paint pot. So we got some two different silvers, we've got a bronze. Let's go with a, I think that could be quite good, Liberator gold, because I think this is quite a dull gold, if I remember correctly. Let's have a look once it's been shaken up. Yeah, so we've got like that kind of like tarnish that I think will work as like a top highlight for certain areas. And I think that's where we're going to start. I'm not going to lie, I am mostly focused on the front of this mini because you're not really going to see the back of it when you do the standing up miniature on your tables. You're not going to take this one out and put it on the table. You're going to switch it for the one that looks like it's attacking players. Come on, focus. We're also testing out new camera positions and stuff this morning, so do forgive me as, say this morning, this afternoon, as I attempt to bumble my way through production. I think what I need to do is maybe set up some areas on here. It could just be the type of camera we're using. Right. So I'm going to start with, I think, the bronze. I'm just going to add some of those deeper recesses back in. I might go and pick up some of the oxidizing style paint, because I think that could be quite cool, the wash that you can put into certain areas to make it look rusted and old. But I could probably just make some of that up here with some moot green and some Baccaroth blue. So let's add a little bit of water to that bronze, just to thin it out, because obviously metallics go on really thick and we want a nice smooth finish on that, even with the corrosion. And then we'll go in and we'll add that to the mini. So I'm trying to keep it on the throne so you guys can, one, see it, and two, I can hold it better. But if it keeps coming off every now and again, I might just switch to having it in a hand, which means that you guys won't be able to really see it. But like I said, this is only really a play stream for testing out the new cameras and trying to get this mini finished. I guess I'm almost treating this bronze as a weathering, in the sense that I'm sort of sporadically putting it on in areas. I'm just going to let it subtly do its work, so it kind of looks tarnished. Obviously, being one of the darker colours, I think I want to try and keep it to the undersides and to the recesses, but obviously we went in there and we did our Templar black for the separation between the plates. Oh, words today. I definitely want to get like the base of those boots. And come up from those back corners. Some lovely areas inside some of the arms as well, which, once more, just a testament to WizKids, really. The minis that they put out that are so undeniably cheap, the detail that once you've stripped off the primer, which me and Craig had a little chat about on Friday, something we both do, you can really get to see the detail in there. And I find that now with pretty much all WizKids, Nolzers and Deep Cuts minis, yeah, I'll always strip the primer off now because it's just so thick. And I wonder if they put it on with a machine. It's like little bits like, I don't know if you'll see that on there, but around that helmet, there are these tiny little rivets. Come on, focus. Come on. I know you can get that close and focus. Oops, if I don't push the table. Come on. You might just be able to make them out there. These tiny little rivets all around the top of the helmet. I didn't see those before. I certainly didn't see them with the primer on there, so I definitely want to get in and try to at least get those to stand out somewhat. Because it's bits like that that your players pick up on. Not that anyone's going to question your painting if you put down minis at the table, but it's nice to give them something to go, whoa, when you put it down. And to be honest, it's quite nice as a DM when somebody compliments your painting. I'm sure we all have that when you put minis down on a table and somebody's like, oh my god, that's awesome. It's kind of what I want with my Legion stuff, is that I said the other night as well that I hadn't actually played Legion yet, and I was just getting it, one, because I want to paint Star Wars minis. My kids are starting to really get into Star Wars, and I do want to learn it, and hopefully we can play some games at home with them. So yeah, I kind of want to do those justice so that when you put them down on the table, you're like, whoa, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And you definitely know it's a selected mini rather than just from the sculpt itself. And I think I'm going to paint up my clone troopers as the 2/12 as well, because I like Obi-Wan, and I like that you get him in the starter set for the Clone Wars. We already have the Galactic Empire one, or the Galactic Wars starter set, and a few extras, so hopefully we will get the clone ones, and then we'll do some clones as well, and we'll have at least the 4 separate factions that we can go with. So I put the bronze on in kind of sporadic areas, and hopefully you'll start to see some tonal definition between those. I'm going to leave the chainmail and stuff underneath that different colour. Now I'm going to take some of our lead belcher. I'm going to hit some of the sort of mid peaks, not quite the full highlights. I'm going to take some out and thin it down. I'm going to do it in the same one that I did the bronze in my palette, because it doesn't actually matter too much about it being a pure tone, because obviously we've mixed it with the bronze before, so if a bit seeps in, a bit seeps in. I'm okay with that. Right, let's go. Lead belcher. Right. It's already too thick. Let's try again. Take some of that off using my paper towel. So whereas I'm going to use that Liberator Gold for the highest peaks, I'm putting the lead belcher in sort of the front of those like neck plates, but not quite the tops. I'm going to do it around some of the rivets just above them, middle bits on the arms, not all the way up those braces, but we're going to do it just coming in a little bit, just cutting in from the wrist on the undersides. Going to re-add it to the very fronts of those bicep braces. I can never remember the name of them. Somebody called me out on my lack of armour knowledge. I think the only one I've actually learned that's away from Pauldron is it a gorget that goes around your neck? Gorget? Right. If I'm wrong, I guess I haven't learned it. How do you guys find painting undead? Is it something that you think is your wheelhouse? Is it your kind of forte? Is it your worst enemy? I do like the undead, but yeah, I just don't paint them that often, which is a shame because I really should. What I might do, mix some of those together, add it to the gauntlets again, really sink into those recesses, and then I'm going to probably dry brush it up. Might add a little bit more of the contrast black to the gauntlets. Maybe just hitting the top of that hat, the helmet that they're wearing, loads of different bits. And we've got different tones going on there in the metal. When it focuses, come on. There you go. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. But I'm going to clean off that brush again, and then I think we're going to add some of that Liberator Gold. This is just a nice bit to do while I'm waiting for that face to fully dry, because I want to go in with some like lighter browns and those greys. Maybe get some like skin pull on there, just to try and bring back some definition, because I just really didn't like what I did with the skin. So I am going to give the gold a little bit of space in the palette, but again I'm still going to try and use the same palette hole. So I'm using this like large palette here, and I've got all three metallics in there, that way I can blend them as and when I need. And I don't really need to use a wet palette because I'm not going to be using that much of it today. So right, add some more water to that, thin it down somewhat. Right, load up the brush, and I'm just going to take a lot of that off by putting the tip back on some kitchen roll. Hopefully that'll take the moisture out, or a lot of the moisture out, and then leave the paint in there. So I hit the tops, those rivets on the armour, and maybe the points of some of the outer lying bits. Although, saying that, it was a duller gold. Once it's on top of this, actually, it looks quite bright. We'll see. A bit too far on that rivet. That's alright, we can tidy that one up in a bit. And some of the other ones from the palette. Right, time to try and get these rivets around the head. Just trying to hit the peaks of them. If I make a mistake, I can just go in and rub some of that off. Yeah, cool. Right, let's add a bit of that to the front of those shin guards. And use the side of the brush to come down and to do a small line just in the centre of those and across the top of the line of that boot. Then we can go from there. So, what else can we add? Get across those knuckles actually. I probably will come back in with some of the bronze and get between those gauntlet fingers, because I think that is actually quite bright now, and I want to knock it back a bit. We want that tarnished look. Let's take some of that bronze. There we go. Adding that back into those gauntlets so we can get the fingers looking nice and defined. So now what we're going to do, is throw the mini across the table. I'm going to try and go in and make some lines across the face. My basic anatomy is not fantastic, but I think I know enough for the muscle segments to pull like across the cheekbones and whatnot there. So let's have a look at some colours. So we have I've got the Catchan Flesh, which I don't want to use because that was our base layer. Then we've got some of the deep skin and the flayed one, but I think I want that monster brown. That's going to be our first real test to see if we're able to do what we need to do. And then I think once I've got the lines in, it doesn't have to be overly neat, because I can go in again and use the contrast paint, the black one, or a mixed paint with some medium to go in and define those lines. Right, some of that brown, I'm going to put that into the palette. Now I do want to thin this down again, because this is where obviously we don't want to gunk up the face too much, but at the same time we just need to get little bits on there. So it's kind of a happy medium where we need to get it runny enough that it's nice and thin, but not seeping into any of those recesses really. And I want a thin brush. There we go. So just another art store brush. Load up and take some of that off so that some of the moisture comes out, and then we're going to try and trace that line before we get there. We'll try and go around the eye sockets just in little lines. That hopefully we'll be able to build up in time. Try and get between the cheekbones and the bottom of the jaw. Try and give it that definition, that stretch. Whether this works or not, I have no clue. This is all trial and error really. See if that shows up. So to get some definition on those cheekbones again, but it's not as bright as it was when we used the skeletal bone, which is what we're after. So that us going again. Joy of using very small amounts of paint as it dries very fast. I'm trying to do some slightly thicker lines now, but make them stand out a bit more and separate them out a bit more. That way, hopefully, we get that muscular kind of look to it. And we'll go up through the browns shortly. So let us work out which one we're going to do. I think it's going to be flayed one flesh, because that's closer to our monster brown on the palette. So you can see, let's see if we can bring that on there. The monster brown is that one down there, and we've got this one here. Whereas the deepkin flesh is a bit more blue-grey and vampiric. So I think we're going to stick with the flayed one flesh to begin with. I'm going to mix that in. We throw the mini across the table again. Right, let's throw him down there so you can see it at least while I mix up some paint. Right, I'm quite literally just going to add this straight to the side of the brown, just to lighten off that area, just to see what we get. And just see if I need to add any more, but actually that's about perfect. So you should see that I've taken the monster brown and then we've added in the little bit of flayed one flesh there. We've got kind of like a latte brown, I guess. I'm going to use that to create like lines across the skin so that we hopefully end up with that muscular look, muscular kind of pull that we're after from that sunken in flesh. So I'm just going to take a lot of that moisture off that brush, but while still trying to keep the paint thin. Right. The joy about this mini is obviously trying to paint it without a base. It doesn't stick to my mini holder, and I didn't have any blue tack on me. So, right, there's one line. Let's try and get that pulling up and around. Cool. I'm going to go again on this side. You don't want too many, just enough to kind of give it direction, I guess. You definitely want to, haha, there it goes. Go from, obviously on the cheekbones we're pulling left to right, but the actual cheeks themselves, they're this like, see if I can get that to focus in there. Where the mouth's open, we have this kind of like ligature area there, and I want that to go up and down, looking like it's been left open. And even if it's just one line, it should be enough, but we managed to get one on that. Let's take some more paint off that. Ooh, hello, if people are just tuning in. We're painting up the WizKids Undead Lord. Undead Warlord even. This was a paint stream that we did the other night on Friday with Dragon Skull Studios. They've just launched their new channel and it was an absolute pleasure to be on there as a guest. But I never actually got around to finishing this. Craig, bless him, in our Band of Badgers group chat, just posted a picture of his finished Warlord, and you can catch that on his Instagram. Hey, Fluffy! And it is incredible. He's done amazing work with it, and he was like, he's looking forward to seeing mine, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to finish that off. So here we are doing a quick stream today, this afternoon, where we're going to carry on with this. So far, where we began was the skin tone itself that I'd done for the face. We had this skeletal bone on there, and I don't really use washes that often. And I used a wash on it, and it ended up looking like some of my paint jobs from a few years ago, and I just wasn't that happy with it. So I went back in with a Catachan brown at the start of this stream, the Catachan Flesh, the base colour. Went over and painted it up. I then started adding in some Monster Brown, lighter areas, and then we started adding in some Flayed One Flesh as well, just to kind of like give it some like muscular pulling and ligature pulling. We've tarnished up the armour some more, so where we had the bronze, the Castellax bronze and the lead belcher mixed before to create a kind of tarnished look, we've now gone in and, let's see if we can get that up there, tried to just dirty it up a bit and just give it a few bits of definition on each different plate, where we've got some of the bronze showing through and some of the tarnish look showing through, some of the metal work that's been scratched. And then we added a Liberator Gold just for some highlights, not loads, but just a few here and there, just to give it like a different kind of 3 different colours of metallics look. So that's sort of where we're at, and now I'm just kind of going into the face, and then I need to do the sword of this undead warlord. I could do with going in and doing the throne some more, because that needs to be done. That was actually the main reason for doing this mini, was that I wanted to do the throne, because I'm doing a larger terrain piece once other bits turn up to finish it off, where I intend to have the throne as part of that diorama and, you know, functional modular terrain piece. So let's see if, let's grab some more of that Flayed One Flesh and Monster Brown mix, and we're going to just again try and give it some direction. There we go. And then what I'll do in a bit is I'll go in with that contrast black, which is one of my favourite paints, and I will go around the edges of that face just to separate it from his chainmail hood. So I think what I'm going to do now is, while I've got the metallic still in the pot, well, in the palette, I'm going to go and tarnish up his sword some more. So I'm going to take some of that Liberator Gold and some of that bronze and silver. I'm actually going to mix all 3 together, take off a lot of the moisture. So that's something I'll say to anybody who is going to end up painting this mini. Because the seating one doesn't come with a base, I'm trying to paint it in the seat, because it's only really the front that I need to care too much about, because you're not really going to see the back of it. I've done the back, but not to the extent that I'm doing the front. But it does keep falling out, and I didn't want to blue tack the chair because I didn't want to lose any paint until I've sealed it. And I didn't want to blue tack it to the base because I find it quite irritating to try and get around. So I'm just trying to hold it in its seat while trying to paint areas of it, which is fiddly and awkward, but we'll get used to it. We're just hitting it in random areas, that bronze and that silver gold mix. Actually, that's a good definition of what the wash has done, actually. So whereas I used the wash on the face and I had a little bit left over, I put some on the side of the leatherwork there, and it's just left it looking wet and kind of tacky, and I don't want that. Maybe if it was like a bog monster I would, but I much prefer layering up so that you don't have that wet look. Certainly is my preferred way of doing things. Right, got some of that lead belcher, some black spots on the foot that we want to go in and just add some scratches to. Let's find that. Then we're going to just add Leadbelcher on its own to the sword and re-go over some of those bronze bits that we did, but not as heavy. That way we can hopefully get a nasty looking old dirty blade. I also think I might give it a gemstone pommel. There is a small pommel on that sword, which is very, very small. It's just around here. There you go. And I think that I would quite like that to have a different colour. And I think it's like little bits, little variations like that, which can really stand out on a mini and make people go, ooh. So I'm probably... See, I imagine like it would be something red, because red's got that kind of like evil colour tone to it, I guess, that you're like, ooh. And I also like the idea of blue, something sapphire maybe, that's like those undead Skyrim eyes that you see on the undead in the catacombs and stuff, whose name I can never pronounce, along with many other names. So actually, yeah, I'm going to go for some blues. I'm going to start a crystal blue, I think, from Army Painter. Or... yeah, you know what? I rarely use them, so why not? I'm going to use a contrast paint. I'm going to see what happens, and then when I fuck it up, I'll go back to the Army Painter. But we've got to try new things. Why not? So, let's dry off my brush quite a bit here. So this is Azurman Blue. Tiniest amount on my brush. Very, very small amount. I'm just going to very lightly come in from the very bottom of that pommel. My thought process here is that this will then make the pommel look like blue metallic, because hopefully the work that we've done on it so far should show through. However, as I've said many times, I'm not that good with contrast paints. But first layer of that just being a blue, you should just be able to see that. It at least shows it up a bit more on this camera. I don't know what you guys can see at home, but at least shows up for me a bit there. Just add a little bit more, just to add some depth to the bottom end of it. I'm going to go heavier underneath, as if it was shadowed. And then I'm going to take my other contrast blue, which is a lot lighter, and go on top once that one's dried. And I might hit it up with a tiny speck of electric blue or something. Maybe a line of white, just to give it that reflective look. And we'll see how we get on. So, ooh, now would be a good time actually, now that face is dry, to go in and do that. So I'm going to grab, I'm wondering if the black will be too much. However, I've got Fire Slayer Flesh. That's a nice dark contrast. So these darker contrasts are the only ones that I'm sort of au fait with using, and I don't like lag them on in a way that's just going to be used as a wash, which I think is what a lot of the contrast paints sort of are used like. But again, I need to do some more research into that personally. But what I do is I use it to like shadow and shade areas, and I think this one will get like those triangular sections of the face where the nose is, and like under the neck, possibly like a line around the face where the face meets the chainmail, and possibly in the eyes, and that way we'll have like a darker reset area. And with it being a contrast paint, hopefully the majority of the pigment should sink to the bottom of those wells and leave a nice transition, like a wash should, to the other areas. But Templar Black is my usual go-to for stuff like this, because I like that cartoon difference. But I'm going to try out this Fire Slayer Flesh. So I'm going to try and trace that line from the underside of the eye down to the mouth. Separates off the upper jaw and the nose. We do need to get into that nose hole. And we want to get into those eyes, especially the tops of the eyes. So obviously where the shadow would come in, that's where it's going to be darker. What is nice is putting the darkness in afterwards, so I can just use my hand to brush away any mistakes with the contrast paint. Yeah, I think that brown is already tons better. See if I can get that to focus for you. Come on, show me the face. There you go. Can't overly see it on my screen, but hopefully you guys can. I'm going to try and get underneath the rim of that hat and just give it a nice dark bit of shading underneath everything. We're going around that face, between the face and the chainmail. And trying not to go too much over those lines, those directional lines that we did earlier. See, or else that work would have been pointless and we may as well have used a wash. I think we're doing alright. Yeah, just need to get back into that nose hole again. There we go. So one of the things that I like to do is, when I've got something small like that, is you can probably see how I'm holding my mini is I actually rest between the two because I've got dyspraxia, so I shake a hell of a lot, and that in between like heightened anxiety and stuff like that, I pretty shaky hands, but I like to hold it together, and I use my mini painting bit and my other hand as a rest, and then when I'm going in to do eyes and stuff like that, I've got these big ass dental goggles that are nice and nerdy, which, see if I can get the magnification to show you there. This is only one of the smaller magnifications, and that's what I use for line work. So that's, God, trying to get two hands going in different directions. Whoop. Let's put that on the screen first, shall we? There's that one there. So that magnifies it. I think this is a ×2. However, when I go in and I'm trying to do these like tiny little motions by stabilizing my hands, I'm just trying to dab in, and I've got to go slow to begin with and just really kind of like push my wrists together, and then just I actually start the line or the stabbing before I get to the mini, and I keep doing it all the way until I make contact. That way we're practicing that line, and hopefully we can adjust anything that we need to do before we get there. But the lenses that I tend to use for that are a lot more powerful. So these are the 3.5 magnification. Hopefully you'll see the difference. Well, I'm not, you know, there are paints out there like Electric Eve and, you know, Oaks Art and stuff that are phenomenal at doing this without too many aids, but like, I need all the help I can get. But that is trying to get it to focus. Let's put that there. The magnification on those ones. There you go, that's a better thing. So when you get real close to it and you're trying to do that fine work, you can really get in there, which is awesome. So I recommend getting yourself some magnification goggles because they've made a difference to how I feel I paint and the quality that I can come out with. But I think they're like 20 quid on Amazon, something like that, so really not much at all. And I yeah, I pretty much use them on everything I paint now. I don't for the base layers and stuff, but when I start going up through the layers, I definitely do use them, and it's got a nice little light on it, which is probably disrupting my stream quite a bit, but hey, I get to paint. Right, so I'm going to get my favourite colour out, well, one of my favourites, and this is what I use for a lot of the leather work and the highlights on those. XB88. It's probably one of my favourite leather highlights and brown highlights, and I know it's a base layer for a lot of people, but I don't know, I just find it pops really well against other things, especially like Rhinox hide, which I've used as the base here, and leather brown from the Army Painter. So I am a big fan of XB88 for the highlighting as well as base layering. Zandari Dust is another good one, but it's a little bit too deserty for what we're doing here. I think if I was trying to make it a lot more dusty, then maybe, but for now, all I need to do is go in, and I'm going to grab my Artificer layer brush actually. It's a brush that I really like. I'm going to try and hit the tops, some of those areas on that strap, which is, come on, autofocus is playing with me today, aren't you? Come on. There you go. So I'm going to try and hit some of the tops of those straps. Just going in, nice line work to try and trace it before we hit the strap, and the line that we need to do, so that when we do make contact, we're already going the directions and such that we want. So another thing we do have on this mini as well is a buckle on that strap, which I haven't done yet as well. That's going to be another hit with the bronze, and then probably a little bit of lead belcher, and then I'll go around and do some of that Necron compound in certain areas as well. So we've got this like leather skirted area. I'm going to go around and get some of that as well, just on those top highlights. Hopefully it should bring out the leather work and the leather brown that we used underneath it. There it is. I'm actually using the side of the brush a lot here to try and just edge it almost without pushing anything too far into the recesses. There you go, you should be able to see those there. Those top lines on those are almost like pleats, I guess it is. Add some just to that handle there, just that's sticking out between the pommel and the gauntlet, just to kind of give it a little separation. Then I think that's all we've got on the leatherwork areas. So let's go in and I want to do the cross guard on that sword in a different colour. Oh, cheers, Fluffy. Yeah, we're trying to work our way through finishing this. Hopefully in the next sort of half an hour, because that's when I'm going to end the stream. But yeah, Dragon School Studios, Craig, who I was on his Twitch channel at Dragon School Studios and their YouTube channel painting this up. And yeah, I would quite like to get it finished, because they posted into our Band of Badgers miniature painting group that they finished, and theirs looks pretty damn good. So I'm just trying to compete, trying to keep up with the herd. So let's go in, and what am I trying to do here? Right, I want that contrast black now. I want my Templar black, because I want to go in and I would like to... Black Templar. There we go. I'm going to separate the sword from the skirted area. So where you can see that sword there, a wash would normally do that job, but I like to use the contrast black, and I like to paint the line in, because I find that that's more effective now than using a wash. And later on we're going to go in and use that Necron compound, and because that's going to be a dry brushing in certain areas like the edge of the sword, I think this is going to add that real definition between the two separate areas. I'm going to use it on the crossguard as well, just to give it a darker look. It's going to go back in under these straps. And I'm quite literally, I'm not even loading it up that much. It's very much just the tip. And with that, we can just push it on and drag it through. We don't want to soak this model, because then we lose all that detail and definition again. And those lines that we're putting in, because it's a contrast paint, they should give it a transition anyway. So all of the pigment should sit mostly at the bottom, while still giving us that transparency on the transition. I'm going to try and get those buckle holes, at least just the top of them anyway. Right, so we've got a bit there between the belt and the over armour, and although this is a top line, we're still going to go in and do it, because we want that separation between different garments. We want the belt to sit different to the chainmail. We want it to, the strap to sit different to the armour. We want the armour to sit different to the chainmail. It all needs to show off, and what I find is using this paint to do that, add in those darker areas between everything, I think really makes all of the details pop out. It's quite nice on deeper areas, like around this elbow here. You can really go for it. It's almost like you're painting it in black, like, you know, between stormtrooper armour. You can throw your mini back onto the table while you're painting it. But yeah, you can see that hopefully between those bicep protectors and the gauntlet that goes up to the bracer, so just here, we should have that separation between the two different bits of armour, and that is stuff that I like to have on mine. I think it's quite nice, because if you do go too heavy, you can just, with a contrast paint, get your finger in there and just knock it back a bit. Right, so I think, minus these boots here, between the boots and the shin guard. Actually, let's put it on the plate that's on the boots as well, actually. If we're going to do it, let's go the whole way. So, let's get those bits done. Those darker recesses. And actually, the top of the shins meet some brown there, so let's cover that. And that should be a fair amount of separation between a lot of the parts. I'm going to go in as well, and there's like a heavier recess just here, and I'm just going to paint that in black so that we've got that shadow just under the sword bit there. So it should be just in here. Then going to, from this side, do the same thing. I'm just going to follow that sword and the edge between the sword and the skirt, so that we've got that separation. And that way that sword will stand out more before we hit it up with the Necron compound. Yeah, so that's that bit. I'm now hopefully going to go in and finish the face. It'll be flayed one flesh just on its own, and that is going to be quite literally like the tops of the bottom of the eye sockets, maybe the bridge of the nose where that is, and trying not to go into those darker areas. And again, I want to thin this down, as you really should most of your paints anyway, but I don't even need a full scoop now. It's going to be minuscule amounts of paint, slightly less than even amounts of water, just to thin it down a bit, make it somewhat transparent, and then we're going to go in and do that again. And I think one of the reasons I find undead so hard to paint is because they don't have eyes in their eye sockets. And whereas one of the techniques that I really like is to almost paint a ring around the eye for minis with flesh on them, so that that darkest base layer is the barrier between your cheekbone highlight and then the white of the eye, and then you can go in and any touch-ups that you need to do from making a mistake with the white, you can just put the base layer back on and it just makes the eyes pop. It's almost like giving a mini eyeliner. I find that that really does work for me. So I'm just quite literally adding in very, very, very small amounts of paint to those cheekbones and that bridge of the nose. Come on. Autofocus. There we go. We're just trying to pick out those top bits. So, got our flayed one flesh. And I suppose this is very close to skeletal bone in a way. And I'm just going to dab onto where the teeth are and the bridge of the nose. And it's quite nice because the bridge of the nose and the cheekbones on this one are very defined. And although I don't want it to be a skeletal face, I still want that sunken flesh look. We can at least add those pull lines that you get with rotted flesh that's sunken into the you get that like ligature and muscular pull. And again, I probably shouldn't use as many finger wipes to clear up my mistakes, but so far with this one it hasn't gone wrong. They'll be my fatal last words though, won't they? So I'm going to wash my paintbrush off and then reload. Because the joy of having a small amount of paint on there is that it dries up real quick. The other nice thing as well, when you're doing stuff that is line work, you can go back in and add darker lines to it if you need to. So I'm not too worried if I do make a mistake with my direction, because I can go in and change it. But the face, I would say, try and get you a nice close-up. Come on. What's annoying is this camera will zoom right in on my eye if I put it there. I could give you my biometrics. And yet, for some reason, when I'm putting the mini here, I wonder. If I lay it down like so and move the camera. That's not the best light for it, really. But, like I said, we're just testing out some new camera positions today, and this one's just on a stand next to me, as I try and work out what I can and can't do with it. Yeah, I'm going to have to take some pictures of that and post it on Instagram with a close-up of the face, because it's going to look a lot cleaner than what I can get here. Maybe I just need to buy a new camera and not use a webcam. Well, either way, that should be the face done. And what we will do now is finish off that throne, because that's what we wanted to actually do. It's why we wanted this miniature. So let us take off Mr. Undead Warlord. So how we've done with the what we've done with the throne so far, we've got some greys on there. So we started with the Vallejo Black Primer, and then I've added a tiny bit of like rubble and dirt to the edge rim because I wanted a bit more texture there. Then we've taken some fluff on board. Let us go in and just clear that up, because I think that actually might be a chip. Right, so let's grab the throne and show you what's going on here. So what we've got is, we went from a Vallejo Black Primer and we worked our way up to black mixed with Mechanicus Grey, and then we did black with Orc Grey from the Army Painter, and then we did Orc Grey and Mechanicus Grey, I think it was, together, and then just the Orc Grey, and then an Ash Grey. And we're starting to just gently dry brush through that. And then we added some of that Templar Black to the cracks and to some of those details there, like between the arm and the next bit of the chair down. And then we started putting on some green wash. However, it's very, very rich, that green. So I want to add a few different tones if I can. Make it a bit more dull, I guess. A bit more subtle. So we're going to try and find what we've got, because one of the paints I really like is the army green, and I think that that could be like a nice transition between the two, but I also need it to be somewhat transparent. So I'm going to put some of that in there. Then I'm going to take my medium, turns it into a wash, quick shade wash medium, and this is again something I rarely use. But what I'm hoping is if I get this and some of the other green and start pulling it through, like wet blending maybe, it should hopefully come together, and then we can do that pommel. So let's add those together. And I put quite a lot of the medium into my palette because I really want this to be quite thin and sink, but we'll see. Add a little bit of water to it as well. Probably got a bit way too much in there, but it gives me room to play around. Again, we're going to add a bit more water because I want that transparency to really be there when we add it to this throne. There we go. So we can see that if I do that on there, we can see through that green, which is what we are after. Then I need my green wash that I used the other day. It's a shade. It was the Beeltan Green. So, have a swig of coffee, stretch my back, and then we'll do that bit. Right, I'm going to add the Beeltan Green first. And I'm using quite a thick brush here. It is the Game Master Starter one, which is the same as their Regiment brush, which is a phenomenal brush. I'm just going to add that to the very bottom of this bit here. So although we're enhancing that green richness there, I'm just going to soak some of that up a little bit. What I'm hoping to do now is add this one also as a wash to the top. And then I'm just going to start dragging that down back into the other green. But hopefully we'll get a nice mixture of the two. Put some up here. Grab some of that Beeltan again. I'm going to pull down into the Beeltan. So if you went the other way, you would end up with the dark green pulling up into the light green. It's a slightly different effect. Similar, but you'll get more of that dark than you will of that light. Hopefully. Come on. You should see. There you go. A little transition between those two there. When that dries, it should be quite thin. So with the light reflecting off it as it is, it doesn't help. But let's take some of that Beeltan off. I need to get into some of those recesses that I put it in. And it's okay for it to be super green in like the bottom recesses here, where it would be more damp. But those top bits, that's where we want it to be a bit drier. And that's why we're trying to use this army green thinned down to really look like it's creeped up there like damp, but at the same time we've still got that damp right in those corners. Come on, focus. Focus. There you go. So if you see the dark green in the recess and the light green up at the top there, and then I might add a bit more dark green into the dip of that backrest, because maybe that's where the dampness from the warlord's back sinks into. It'll just give us that definition on the parts again. So if I put that into that recess, like so, then I'm going to take our green again that we've made up with the army painter. I'm just going to add that up there and pull it down. We should have a creeping green look there. Now we're going to add it across this edge here, across the top. But where there's an overhang on that chair arm, I'm actually going to leave that bit darker green so that we get some shadows and some transition colours between our two areas of where it would be on the chair, which is coming up the corner, and then also in the actual arm and on the arm. Just gonna hit that top edge with some of this as well. And I don't need to be amazingly neat, because obviously nature isn't neat. It just gives us just something more interesting. Something that's not just grey stone. Hopefully, with our paint jobs, we can tell stories. We can enhance what our players feel and see, which is the whole point of all of this. We tell stories, we immerse ourselves into worlds from our minds and from books. And if we can give the players a visual to really hone in and enjoy the game more, and we can do that with painting, then I'm all for it. Right, I actually think I'm done. So, let's have a proper look. Like I said, this is the thing I focused on with Dragon School Studios the other night. I was going to keep trying to focus on my hand rather than the mini, but it is. There we go. We've got those two greens working together then. Obviously once they've dried, they will look a lot smoother, but it's just subtle enough that you should be able to pick it up as players and as miniature painters, but not enough that it's drowning in the green. And then when we add our undead warlord, we should end up with one painted WizKids Mini. Pretty proud of how I've got the face looking, but I'm going to have to take pictures of that and put it up onto Instagram, which, if you're not already following, is at the DragonBorn Bard and at DragonBorn Industries. Obviously we started this the other night with Dragon School Studios. They are on Instagram as D&D Painter 76 and YouTube as Dragon School Studios. Go check them out as well. Craig is an awesome painter. Later on in the week, I'm hoping to bring you some Star Wars Legion painting, where I intend to do Moff Gideon, as we've currently got him primed up and ready to go. And I'll be doing it in two different bits. I've got the cloak, his cape, and then I've got him all ready to go. And I've done him on a premium base, so I'll do it in my city effect. And I'll show you guys how I've done that if you've seen it on my Instagram. And then we've got Dragonlance on Friday with Band of Badgers. So that is my player campaign. I get to be a player, which is amazing. And although I'm currently sat in a sci-fi studio, I will have a fantasy backdrop for it, because I know some of you were finding that quite funny that FizzWiz, my little gnome wizard, was in space. But yeah, the Dragonlance campaign's awesome, and Dave, who's running it, is a really cool guy. He's really, really into D&D and is, you know, just an awesome DM, really. This is the Beadle and Grimm's one, which is also very cool that we're getting to play through their Steel edition of Dragonlance. But for now, I'm going to sign off because I'm going to go do adult things, and then I will hopefully be back tomorrow with Moff Gideon. Until then, see you around.